Are you okay if we take a couple viewer questions?
Oh,
A
please.
lot of people are excited to see you, man. So we got a few questions. First of all, the Coxman Archives. Thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. You keep this show on the air. And they say, congratulations, Peter Joseph. Looking forward to watching the film tonight, which, before I let you go, you're going to tell everyone where they can catch the film. Dan Campbell, what's up? Thank you very much for the Super Chat contribution. Heavy question here. Why can't we just accept our own demise gracefully and let some other species take over in a million years? ? Sheesh, have some consideration for our billionaires. They aren't built to deal with sustainable environments.
I know, the poor billionaires. They're such an oppressed minority, aren't they?
You have not brought up through the course of this interview, Peter, what poor Jeff Bezos is going to do in this society where what's he going to do? He's got to go to space.
Yeah, that's another thing. These people that are so behind Elon Musk and all this engineering to go to space and Mars, what do they think they're going to gain from any of that? It's not going to help the general population. It's just flaunting expression by ambitious billionaires for their own ego and historical memory. If anyone's going to be going to space and Mars, it's not going to be anyone but the billionaires and super wealthy. So anyway, that's another conversation.
Well, it totally is. And you touched upon it earlier when you were saying about how, the accumulation of wealth brings about this like psychopathy and sociopathy. And it's very evident because if you had $1 billion and you really wanted to help the climate, there's a long list of things you could do with those types of resources. A long list.
Oh,
I mean, even one of the quote nicer billionaires like Tom Steyer. It's like if that guy really wanted to help the climate, the last thing he would do is run for president. There are a million other things he could do with those types of resources. Yeah. Yet you have these people that have the resources, and they're like, we're going to colonize space.
Yeah,
we're going to go look for some cheap alien labor.
Yep.
It's just insane.
No, you hit it. You hit the nail on the head. All you have to do is look at these outrageous resources being hoarded by these people, and then look at what they do with it. They create their little charities and their tax loopholes, and they give a lot of lip service to poverty and so on. I mean, in my film, in Reflections, I have a character that wins a fictional lottery, and he wins the biggest lottery of the time, a couple decades from now, $15 billion. And he decides to solve homelessness in Los Angeles, his hometown. And he gets the Nobel Peace Prize. So I have this scene where he's giving this speech, and he says at the very end that the billionaires of our world are not symbols of success; they are symbols of violence. And he's talking about how he has to end his program because none of the billionaires are helping him at all. He's the only one that has ever tried to solve, which could be done, by the way. 75,000 homeless in Los Angeles. Yeah, you could easily create with a couple $1 billion of billionaires funding it, I should say, over the course of time, nice institutional systems to get these people off the street and the medical help that they need. They don't do it. And it kind of surprises me, frankly. You'd think at least the egos of these guys would want to be a savior, right? You think they'd at least want to do it to make themselves look like they're the best person in the world. But they don't. They still don't do it. It's just incredible to me. Where's the last thing that you saw an actual super wealthy person do directly? I'm not talking about charities. I'm not talking about Bill Gates and the nonsensical philanthropist pact where everybody arbitrarily agrees to give away all their money when they die to some other charity, which is probably just another tax haven loophole. And by the way, and one other thing I'll comment, and the arrogance as well, especially with the Gates Foundation, is they transcend state authority and any kind of democratic process. These guys go into nations with their stupid amounts of money and affect them without any democratic participation whatsoever. It's like a dictatorship of the billionaire philanthropists. And they do it purposefully. Bill Gates has actually said that he doesn't want to give money to the government because he doesn't think the government has the role it should. Well, the government does suck. Yeah, the governments around the world, especially in the United States, are horrible. But the reason they're horrible is because no one's trying to help them. The people that run the government are so libertarian, they don't even believe in the idea of government. I mean, literally, the president of the United States doesn't even believe in government. That's why when the COVID thing happened, he refused to do that whole nationalization process, whatever it was called, where he conscripts industry. He did it eventually, but he tried to bring on corporations. Remember that big list of commercial corporations he went through, describing how they were contributing to this? He's literally circumventing the idea that government should do anything. He said, only private enterprise. That's the religion of private enterprise. And it's really destructive. It's unfortunate that we we can't understand. I mean, government is management. People shouldn't say, I hate the state. That's saying you hate yourself. That's saying that you're hating the entire idea that there should be participatory democracy at all, that there should be any decision making. You have defined, you are ultimately what this institution is going to be and do if it actually worked. And we could take I could talk a great deal as to why that doesn't work, of course, with the structure of capitalism and so on. But I think everyone gets the idea.
Oh, I think our government, I mean, they just figured out. I mean, it's so ironic we have such a horrible work culture in the United States, but our government, they really figured it out big time. We are lawmakers who do not believe in making laws. See you later. We're going on our 5th vacation of the year.
Yep. The neoliberal,
makes sense.
Yeah, the neoliberal disease. And that's another thing about this evolution. People need to look at it as a spiral staircase. It's not that you can just revert back at this point. Neoliberalism has polluted the entire planet. The idea of privatization, the idea of basically just promoting big businesses and corporations and private enterprise in general. And it's going to continue getting worse. We've already reached that trajectory. There's no going back unless we start radical change. In other words, people that talk about, I'm a big fan of a lot of people that are more conservative, I should say. Professor Wolf is a great mind in terms of the kind of core socialist values. He refers to himself as a socialist, or Bernie Sanders, but they're still, in my mind, I'm not trying to be insulting, they're still locked in the idea that they can make the changes they propose within the current model, as if we are still in a place where that's going to be supported. And I know some may disagree with that. There's a reason why the United States is so much different and doesn't have, say, healthcare for all versus Europe or the Scandinavian countries, which are the most successful. That's because there are different paths and trajectories that have happened in the development of these nations and their cultures and their power system, that where they are in the power hierarchy on the global level. So to expect the United States to just kind of superimpose Scandinavian social policies is absolutely preposterous. The U.S. is far too messed up, not only in its culture. I mean, literally, you have whole huge swaths of people, undereducated people. Again, I'm not trying to be insulting, that believe in their own oppression. Literally, they support the systems that oppress them and keep them poor because they think that's freedom, and that's part of the crisis of consciousness we have in this country.
But do you think? I mean, are there still possibilities for some, shifts in policy if there is enough pressure? I mean, I think and again, I have my criticisms of all electoral politics big time, but I think when you're talking about someone like a Bernie Sanders and even someone like a Richard Wolff, who are in 2 different lanes, they're still kind of working within those lanes they're occupying.
Yeah. And I don't put them down for doing that. I say it's just not enough. I say there has to be a deeper plan here. If we can get finally, universal healthcare in America, that's great. It seems like it's an inevitability eventually, maybe. I mean, but look at how long this has been talked about. I mean, I'm just looking at what's really happening and the trends that I see, and I can't help but say that having the core focus being on how to influence government to create policy for the better it's just not enough.
Sure.
That's all.
Well, do you think we need, because I would say, which I think kind of piggybacks on that, the thing though is we need everybody to occupy the different lanes. Like I kind of break it down where it's like we have reformers, which is somebody like, say, a Bernie Sanders or any politician that is trying to use electoral politics to do their part to shift the status quo. We have reformers, and then we have revolutionaries. And, you can be one or the other. It doesn't make you any better or worse, but we kind of need each other. A reformer can't be effective without the revolutionaries. The revolutionaries still need the reformers to kind of whittle away at things until we get to the place where we all want to be. Would you agree with that or no?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't know how anyone would disagree. There is a synergy there because, as I said earlier, we have to work on multiple levels. But I would say the reformers are not really reformers, though. I mean, Martin Luther King had the best statement. He said towards the end of his life, I am going to have to paraphrase, I've spent my life, thinking we can have, incremental change here and there, and we can move along in this way, and then progress will be inevitable. And today I feel differently. We need a total restructuring of our society. And I think, he was a reformer, even though he didn't live long enough to really put in the poverty system, the economic bill of human rights that he was putting forward. Before he got shot, he was going to have a huge march in Washington to force universal basic income. And, this was true reformer at the time. And universal basic income, of course, with Yang, I completely agree. It would be great to have universal basic income to help people out of poverty now, but that is a very small patch in the huge scope of other problems, and ultimately will not do anything to help the consumption patterns of this type of economy, and so on and so on and so on. A true reformer, I would say, it has to be radical. But I agree. Once again, I don't like to alienate people by going on this tangent. Excuse me. I'm saying these things that are so radical and say that nothing else is going to work. But I do encourage people to think about it and to really go step by step down the process of what's going to be required to do two things: create ecological balance with our habitat and reduce socioeconomic inequality, which is the largest driver of human division on the face of the earth. It's literally the antithesis of our inherent psychology. We're not designed, as I put in my film, there's no evidence to show that humans are designed to be hierarchical. In fact, it creates worse public health for us. We are not bonobos or chimpanzees. Well, bonobos actually have very limited hierarchy. We're not chimpanzees. We are not baboons. We are not limited by this extremely primitive lower brain reality where we have no other. We have consciousness to a degree. That's what makes humans different from the other primate species. Nothing is inevitable if we can really think about it and draw awareness to that fact, as Marshall McLuhan once said. So, anyway.
I read him a lot in grad school. Jason wants to know, what do you do about ego? Ironically enough, that was the next question.
Oh, ego
it's broad. It's broad. But what do you do about ego?
Well, I think ego is a defense mechanism response. And I think ego is extremely amplified in its neuroses in the current system because everyone has a reputation. They need a reputation to get a job. They need a basic respect that comes from the cultures of the system. So, ego is right up there with having lots of money. It's right up there with having ownership and property. So I think the egoism stems from that fundamental insecurity. And it's not really ego. Anyone that's really boasting about themselves narcissistically, if it's not just a clinical disorder like like with Trump, they're basically just projecting their own insecurity. That's what I find when people are really egotistical. I mean, that's a deep psychological conversation, but
totally.
I'll just leave it at that.
Peter, where can everybody watch the movie tonight?
So it's on a whole smattering of on-demand cable and on-demand internet. You can go to interreflectionsmovie.com. I'm getting all these links updated, but the list that people can search for is currently on the website. If they go to watch interreflectionsmovie.com, all the standards. You got the YouTube, you got Vimeo, you got Vudu, you have Amazon Prime. I use the traditional distributor with this, so of course I'm in bed with the devil as usual. But you just can't operate with this kind of production without it getting out there. It's more important to me that people see it in a professional environment, and as opposed to just me releasing it myself. So yeah.
So that's interreflectionsmovie.com. That's where people can go.
Interreflectionsmovie.com, exactly.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you want to know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and make it our own. Get your